You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are about to receive message. You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching the Meta Show.
Audio button. There we go. Okay, we're live. Whoa, I didn't break it. I'm
Jazz
still
hands.
Jazz
Let's
hands.
see, we've got audio. I can actually see on Boat's screen share now. I can see the microphones are working, and we are here in front of a beautiful, glorious new blue sun, which is absolutely fantastic. We're getting some resubs, which I am delighted to go through in a moment. We have proper Trojan Pro font. I am still in this weird situation here where, because of daylight savings time, I have my battle station by these two massive windows here in my apartment, my undisclosed location. And so I'm trying to get the normal like rave lights thing going on. We can't easily green screen here because of light pollution. So we don't have a solution just yet, but we are working on it. And I wish I could actually do the green screen now so we can have an uninterrupted blue sun behind us. That just looks fantastic. That is the best.
Yeah,
wow.
so right away. Yeah, so Luminal Flux.
Dive into shoutouts.
Luminal Flux is 1 month away from that 24 months.
3 months. Jay Mayonzo was subscribed with Twitch Prime. We got Nana Helsinki for 15 months. Is Eve real? I don't know. Is any of this real? What is real? What is reality anyway? Darthkill, Icelandic Death Flu, Beth's Flu, and he's our guest today of one of several. Darthkill and Shingley, part of the FanFest on the Ground crew. Gilson, I know Eller from hanging out in California a couple times. He's been on one of the boats with us 7 months in a row. Thanks, dude. And Executive Outcomes Villain 4 months in a row. Zandrill 7 months. Why not? Best dot. Worst dot.
Eric Asbach 15. Yay!
15 excellent. Woo! DVRB is always too loud. A lot louder.
Well,
than
that's
normal.
because I have to play with it.
So it's saying, Matani, turn up your comms a bit. Let's see
it's
if
not.
I need to increase. It's
it
not
might
me.
It
might be you.
There,
wow,
I think
Matani
that might be
is
better.
back. Yes, Matani is.
Yeah, you're back for FanFest and traveling and doing all the horny white boy lifestyle things that you always do.
I have been around and about. It was less horny white boy lifestyle and more just, you know, I can only travel for about a week before I get really homesick. And seriously, like I go about 7 days internationally or any place that's away from home, and then I want to go home. And you know, I went to San Diego for a week. And then I had only 4 days at home, and then I went to FanFest for a week, and I'm really happy to not be traveling anywhere until E3. I'm using username for 26 months in a row. God damn, dude.
Yeah, dude,
Thank
that's
you.
awesome.
Again, as usual, when we're seeing people who are resubbing and subbing, let's do what I'm doing. Follow my lead, spam some black eagles in chat.
I almost forgot to include this. For those that missed it last week, they announced the Vegas. Vegas is coming. They got it in that first week of October rather than the last week this year.
Indeed.
So no more Halloween party, but that's fucking awesome because I'm excited.
Vegas is going to be great this time around. We have a lot of interesting things hooked up. So, you know, again, we're going to be a little slow to start here because I'm just getting situated here. I am recovering from the dreaded Icelandic death flu. Shingley is smug. He is one of our guests today. Say hello, Shingley.
Hello.
Hello, and we've got Shingley, Birchall, and Darthkill with us. Shingley and Darthkill are going to be talking to us about their FanFest on the Ground experience, which I was there too, but I guess I don't get to talk about it. And
well, you get to talk about it, of course. That's the whole point. You end up talking anyways.
And then and Birchall is going to be talking about, for our international segment, he is the CEO of ODN, which is one of Goonsform's old school French corps.
And that's the oldest. One of the oldest corps in the game is French from TCF. Yeah.
So what do we got going on today? Let's see. We have we're going to be talking about FanFest as our top story.
Yep.
We're going to have Virtual on for our International Power Hour to talk about what it's like leading a French corporation within Goodstorm. Then we've got Nullsec news in general. We're talking about like Test losing a super, this big slap fight we had yesterday over the CO2 Fortizar and Catch, just random mass work wall death. We're going to be talking about, when we get to CCP, please, we're going to be talking about like Shield versus Armor, the whole Shield slave discussion that's happed up. And of course, the big news of the day is, as we speak, NC Dot is moving about 170 Titans and 190 supercarriers through Pure Blind. It looks like they're headed towards the direction of the Initiative, or the NC Dot versus Initiative thing.
Yeah.
Everybody always thinks that fighting the Initiative is going to be easy and that they can do it without using all of their power. Sally Selman, what up, dude? Also fantastic.
Yeah, this'll be very interesting, might I add, because NC Dot's the first alliance in EVE history to require every member that joins the alliance must have a fax. So in order to get in, not only do you have to have the API requirements, the skill requirements that NC Dot's always done, but you have to have a fax. So it's going to be interesting to see if we see 400 or 500 faxes, or are we going to see the 90 that we've seen so far. That'll be the interesting tell right there.
Yep, let me take a look here. So as we keep our eyes on the Superfleet as it is moving through time and space, we're going to keep eyeballs on that. And we've, of course, been expecting this for some time now. But very good numbers from NC Dot: 170 Titans, 186 supercarriers, and 90-ish faxes. They had already moved their regular caps before, but as we're always telling people on Fireside Chats, to train for faxes and get Titans and get supercarriers, this is what our enemies are doing, so we should always be keeping eyes on that prize. Speaking of eyes on prizes and things like that, we're looking at a blue sun here today, but we had little strat ops going on to Catch, and we are going to be delaying the capital training op on CC. Usually one of the things I really like doing on the Meta Show is promoting our capital training ops on CC by having them going on in the background. But do we have a rough ETA on when we're going to see some things blow up?
Jay said he's trying to get it done now, like set up now. They're forming as of 15 minutes ago, so they should be fighting. I told them to start fighting right around 2000 EVE, but they're not here yet. They said they are doing it at the sun. I am set up in the right place. They told me the X-B sun, so they want to see the blue sun in the background when they blow each other up.
Norwegian Relic is also pointing out something that is very key. There is, earlier today, there was a hilarious Leviathan lost by NC Dot. Speaking of the devil, we're going to go over here.
We'll be getting to those, and there's a couple other ones that are going to be interesting we're going to talk about here soon.
Yep. All right, boys and girls. And, of course, Anti-Girl was one of the best things that we did at FanFest was we saved. We'll save that. Shingley, please remind me to talk about the saga of rescuing our people from the horrors of men's rights activism.
Yeah, so we're going to get ready to go into our... Where did it go? Top story. Yeah, that's it. I got it right here. But first, I'm using username 26 months. Holy shit, thanks, dude.
We got him covered.
Rothberg and Harbinger100 both just subscribed, but they didn't press the button that makes it pop up on screen. So it just tells us in the chat that they
subscribe, but you need to actually press something. How does this work? Like
so what it does is they can subscribe by throwing the money at the screen, but they have to announce it by there's a button that announces like which stream they want to show it in. So that it'll tell us here on our Twitch chat, in the actual chat, that they subscribed, but it won't make the fancy pop-up until they tell it to make the fancy pop-up. It's their decision. So they can do it in like a week, right? But it still records it as happening now, so that's cool. Yay! So we're going to press the fancy button and go into our top story by clicking this button. Fancy button!
The system works, and while we were pressing the fancy button, we had Zetas just subscribed, and we also had Shingley for 7 months in a row. This is how you make it do fancy pop-ups, son. Excellent. Alrighty, where are we booking Vegas rooms? Vegas is going to be pretty interesting for reasons that I can't talk about here. In terms of the party crew, I have some news that will be confirmed in June about a new and interesting venue for our people to enjoy, which will, of course,
I'm excited for that. I can't wait.
Public. Yeah.
So FanFest! I wasn't there, but I heard it was interesting.
Well, I mean, there's one of the things that Boat brought up at the start here is that from a certain perspective, it seems like there was kind of two FanFests, right? A lot of, and a very sort of neutral blogger, like I read from Neville Smith's blog. He's an old school Eve University guy, very distinguished, mature gentleman, and he's very balanced. He doesn't take sides in anything involving Nullsec bullshit. And basically, the recurring theme I saw was people who are used to going to FanFest and then watching it from a distance sort of report like, wow, it sort of seems underwhelming if you're watching it from afar, which then is very different from the experience if you're there on the ground. So before we bias everything, talking about the things that are at FanFest, we've got two of our crew here, Darthkill and Shingley, who were there on the ground. Shingley, was this your first FanFest?
No, it was actually my second. I was there last year as well.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience this year and what it was like last year, because I missed it last year, so I'm eager to hear about the contrast between the two.
So I think probably the biggest contrast, at least that I noticed, was the complete disparity in the number of goons that turned up. So last year we had something like 20. This year we had well over 50.
Wow.
That's right. I think we ended up with the largest number. We were the largest alliance there, and at the Imperium dinner on Thursday night, which is sort of like the Thursday night Imperium dinner at Vegas in a lot of ways, we ended up with 65 people and one very confused waiter who was having to deal with us filling up the entire room at the Roadhouse.
It's interesting because did any of the directors go? Because I thought you were the only one from Valve going. It was like no one else.
I was actually. I was the only. There were basically two people in what we would call leadership from the Imperium. There it was basically just me and Wibla came at the last minute. I came at the last minute. So Shingley, you had a lot more of our people there, which was excellent. And what else can you tell us?
In general, like the events and stuff as well were pretty different. So last year there was a lot more focus on just wandering around and trying out things. Like last year CCP had their what they now call Spark, that Tron-like VR game, as well as their demo for the shooter Project Nova. Whereas this year it was a bit more lacking on game demos to play. They just had Valkyrie and Gunjack and a couple other things like that. But in terms of actual stuff to do around Harper, the event hall, it was mostly just to do with their role-playing event, which ended up being quite a lot of fun.
Did you actually participate in the role-playing event? I know that some of our guys did.
Yeah, a little bit. It was more or less just mostly watching the likes of Scenario and one of the other dudes whose name escapes me, playing with them.
It was Try who was taking Try was doing a lot with it.
We the people of Elysium have to know, did Scenario really get taken to task for trying to steal something? Did this really happen?
It did in fact happen. He did try to steal the tokens, and he did get tackled. And we ended up. So I don't know if people know this, and I'm going to bring Darthkill in here next to talk about his experiences. But we ended up. The people from Goodstorm and the Imperium ended up taking the LARP very seriously, some of them, and we ended up, there was some sort of scheme, and I don't really know all the details on it, where we ended up getting almost all the tokens lined up necessary, and we threw the vote for peace. So Goonswarm has saved the galaxy, the Imperium has saved the galaxy, you are welcome for saving the galaxy from this plague. And when our guy handed in the tokens, what he said was, and I'm not making this up, I was so proud when I heard about this later because I was off being me and not there. I was, he hands them in and says that if anything in this galaxy is going to be murdering you, it's going to be us. So we're going to cure the plague because you're here for us to kill. And we also knew, and he had predicted accurately, that voting for peace and hope and curing the plague would result in massive amounts of booze and unhappiness from everybody else not
That's
in the Imperium
fucking awesome.
at the keynote when it was announced, or the closing ceremony, which is what happened. So Try did a fantastic job with that. And also had a really cool leather jacket. I don't really like that dude, but I'm biased because I typically like our people. So Darthkill, I've been running my mouth a bit. Darthkill, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for people who don't know who you are, and tell us about your FanFest experience.
Hey, I was at last FanFest, and that's when I joined up with the Imperium after CO2 went and burned you in the back or something. There's a lot of drama. I've tended to sit around the FanFests learning about all other people's experiences. So I've been talking with Circle of Two, Test, Brave. I in fact met the Brave Alliance leader, and he gave me a nice swagging thing for it.
Yeah, Dunk Dinkle was
Oh,
there.
different
Uncle
guy.
Dunk was there. I don't know whether I don't think that he's actually the leader of Brave, but Dunk was there and represented.
I think he is
Brave
now.
in the
I think
Alliance
Kigali
panel.
Kigali stood down and gave it to him or something.
It's entirely possible. I
Yeah.
actually, despite the fact that Brave is absolutely convinced that the Black Hand spends all of our time trying to manipulate Brave or things like that, we really stopped paying attention to them a long ass time ago. So, Dunk Dingle is actually, I got to give a shout out here. He is just a really legit dude. I've met him in Vegas a couple times now, and he usually brings swag for people. He was handing out phone cases with a Brave logo this time around. I've got basically a beer opener for a bottle opener with a Brave logo on it that he gave me a couple years ago, or it was at Vegas, I should say. Just a really legit chill dude. So that's awesome if he is in fact Brave's Alliance leader. Somebody can confirm that. It shows you how well I've been paying attention to Brave, because I literally don't know who's in charge over there. This is all a lie. Obviously, it's a vast conspiracy where I'm trying to manipulate Brave by trying to give them good space back in the day and having them spit on our face and,
That's funny.
all that other stuff.
Yeah, about Brave. But moving on.
Well, so I mean, Darthkill, last time you, so what would you say? Actually, you know what? Let me make these questions a little bit more structured. I want to ask each of you guys, what do you think was the highlight and the lowlight? What was the best thing and the worst thing about this FanFest? So Darthkill, I'll start with you. What was the best thing and the worst thing about this FanFest?
Best thing was meeting this other group of people from America that decided to just hit me up, and they went and did a thing that not a lot of you know about. There was this case inside of the event, and it was found on the second day, and they stole it on the second day, and it got the person that was guarding it came out of character to stop it, but they talked with CCP Falcon afterwards, and they did a little thing, and the next morning the case was gone because Capsulus had stolen it.
Ah. Okay, so what was the worst thing?
The worst thing was when I found out about where they were hiding all of the items. They were hiding them outside, so I spent 2 hours outside looking for items that weren't there.
Oh! Wow,
He told me about this earlier. I felt so bad.
I feel bad now by proxy. Vilix also, thank you for this. We'll do shout-outs later, but I keep
I'm keeping track of them on screen for
good,
you.
I can see that.
See?
All right, so Shingley, best thing, worst thing, what do you think?
So easily for me, the best thing was actually just hanging out with our guys. So like all the Imperium needs to turn up, doing all the parkour stuff, just getting drunk pretty much every single night. That was easily the most enjoyable bit for me.
We rolled pretty hard. What was the worst thing?
Probably things like honestly, the Alliance panel was quite possibly the single most boring thing I've ever attended.
They need me to go again, don't they?
Very entertaining.
Tell us about it, Shingley.
Sure. So you ended up having a panel of, I think it was an Eve Uni guy, Elise Randolph, Dunk Dinkle from Brave, there was an Init dude who was also pretty entertaining, and a Red versus Blue guy from the Blue Federation. And there was some really weird questions from CCP about this stuff, and it was all really
who was running it? Was it CCP Manifest was doing?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
What a surprise!
It was really tame and just really not very funny. And then you had Dunk, who was constantly the last person to speak about things, and his stuff would just be like super dry one-liners, which would crack everyone up. After these 4 other guys were sitting there being like, "Oh yeah, my alliance is amazing because of this reason," and Dunk's like, "Oh yeah, my favorite thing about this alliance is the way we fail cascade every 2 years."
That's excellent. What I have no idea how they were going to do a debate format in the first place, like having an alliance debate. Like, what are you supposed to do? What were they supposed to be debating?
They would, so CCP would give them like questions or topics, like I think one of them was, what's your favorite thing about your alliance, and what's the thing you hate the most about another alliance that's at the table?
That's kind of weird, because like, why would you hate Red versus Blue?
It gets even
really
better,
can't
though.
Stand RVB because they have fun and don't bother anybody.
Who's the chick that always organizes all that? CCP, what's her name? She does all the like talk shows and everything.
The Alliance panel wasn't organized by anybody.
Well, someone posted on Reddit
Manifest
yesterday or the day before that they didn't record it and they didn't stream it, so they have no recollection of how that event went out to show anyone else. The
Well, that
whole like
sounds like
discussion,
it's
debate, everything is gone.
I think that's probably for the good of all parties. Then that's excellent. Also, Blast of Hell is pointing out that the best thing was Thursday dinner. Cheese fries were good, and then the death flew. So yeah, no, it was a interesting fan fest. I mean, I thought we had sort of like a parallel fan fest in a lot of ways. Like the Imperium folks mostly, it was kind of a funny moment when we first arrived there at the keynote, where people were like, they had a lot of over promoting Manic Velocity. Like, that was one of the things that I noticed about CCP, was very clearly like trying to make Manic Velocity into some sort of boy band style pillar of the EVE community, and he's some dude who most people haven't heard of. That was sort of interesting. Exactly.
Wait, what?
That's my point. And then, so that happened, and it was like trying to say, like, who do you think is the biggest alliance here? And all the puppies will sit around and go like, shout out their alliance names and cheer and things like that. And none of our guys give a fuck about, Goon Swarm. So of course none of us were shouting things. You can see some fighters are up against the sun here. And
yeah, I'm just showing them because I'm waiting on the nerds to get over here and fight. They're not here yet, so.
Yep.
So
we ended up just sort of having our own sort of parallel fan fest. Like, we went and did our own things at a certain point. Like, the party at the top of the world closed at 1. Hodor was good. I saw him in Madison about a year ago when he came through on the Rave of Thrones tour. I was a little bit disappointed that they had Hodor spinning before Permaband. Like, from a party construction perspective, it would have been better to have Permaband, which also credit to Permaband. Even though some people are like skeptical about Permaband by now because they play all the time, it's the CCP house band, they apparently did a fantastic performance, and I heard that even from people who are like super metalheads like Minty Roma and crew, who are hard to please, that they actually so Guard and Nova and crew knocked it out of the park. But I would have had Permaband as the opener and then just let Hodor spin, because he had a really banging set. And dancing at 10 p.m. is like dancing between 10 and 11 p.m. is just
that makes no sense.
Done.
Like, why not just let the man roll through the night? Like, that I don't get that about that.
He should be a headliner, not an opener.
Right.
But it's possible that they could only get him there for the 1 hour. I don't really get it. But
CCP.
Aquinas Protocol is saying that Manic is on the CCP payroll. That's interesting, and would explain a lot if that's the case. I'd be curious.
But who is Manic? I've never even heard that name before.
That's the point. That's why it's funny.
I don't understand. I'm so confused. But hey, moving on. Yeah. So I got questions. You were there.
Ask away.
You all were there. The T3 cruiser announcement, 25 systems to 12. I heard there was a lot of groaning from the PL attendees that Pete's are kind of dead. I heard from our boys in Black Ops that their way of doing things might die out. T3 cruisers used as like Sino points for hot drops might be dying out. What do you guys think based on CCP? I mean, it sounded like they were very vague. Were they any more extra details they went on about that they talked about?
I was surprised they didn't say anything about the T3 cruisers at the keynote.
Yeah,
like I expected
weird.
to see discussions about the T3 cruiser rebalance at the keynote, and there was just nothing there. And I guess they published information about it later in a dev blog.
Well, they had a picture. They had a picture from the video where they showed the 25 subsystems going down to 12. They moved cloaking into the same as defensive, and they added remote reps and all that to every T3. So they've added all of that to the game. So that's interesting. But what I didn't get, though, is they didn't really go into detail for something that's expected to be a summer release. It's been leaked a couple of times now that it's coming out this summer, or they're looking at doing it this summer. And all of the things that they talked about having this summer, they kind of went into detail already. They haven't done the T3s yet. So I'm very curious if they pushed it back. There's like nothing coming out of CCP here. And I just wondered if maybe in between the lines they talked about this at FanFest, if someone got a hold of Fozzie and was like, hey, what the heck?
They really didn't.
That's
I mean,
weird.
The T3 stuff, in my experience, like most of the discussions from CCP were related to the new Blood Raiders thing. I mean, my impression from things is that CCP, I attended the panel. One of the only panels I did attend was the behavior panel that Larrikin and Berger and their team did. Those are the guys who are working on the Blood Raiders complexes. And one of the things that's interesting about that isn't so much that I care about group PvE, but it's more that it's a tools project from what I understand. Like a lot of the things that CCP needs to do to modernize EVE goes about basically creating tools, internal tools for their own developers to go through and add new content and do things. So like the Blood Raiders stuff, you know, it's sort of the tip of the iceberg, and what we as players won't see, but hopefully will benefit from, is easier development for CCP to crank out content of this sort of different flavors. And my impression is that the Blood Raider stuff is probably going to immediately become, you know, PvE Citadel raid complexes basically for all of the factions across the galaxy. So, so that was interesting, but very little about the actual game balance. I mean, Shingley, Darthkill, do you guys see anything?
No, you're right. It's just it was just pretty much the bare minimums that you guys heard about the rebalancing of how many subsystems there are. But other than that, there was pretty much no other details.
I didn't hear much about it either. I wasn't in the thing until the very end.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
and then as we move on here, there are a couple of things that came out of this FanFest that are interesting. Of course, they announced the structure transitions. All the NPC player-owned structures are now, like the original stations, I'm talking about like NOL and stuff, are being transformed into citadels that can be captured. Here's a link to that. And that's going to be coming here soon. That's going to be interesting. And, of course, the Moloch Titan stats were officially announced. For those that have never seen that one, that is huge. I was talking to some people about this last night with overheat and other things like that. We're looking at 80-kilometer webs, unlimited NOS power. No matter if you're NOSing from a frigate or a Titan, you can NOS all the time, which is something that we haven't had since the old NOS dummies, like 8 years ago. So that's insane. And of course, it has laser beams. So it's like a Titan version of a curse that can NOS forever. Oh, it's so disgusting. And it's also apparently going to have the highest EHP of any ship in the game, period. Even the new Leviathan, I heard they talked about the new Garistas Leviathan will use fighters. I guess they call it a Garistas Leviathan. I don't know what it's going to be named, but it's like the Garistas Titan. It's going to have fighter drone bays and possibly T2, like super carrier fighters. Like, holy fuck. I don't know about you, but I really want one of those.
I think it's just going to be interesting to see how all this works. Like what they're saying is that the Blood Raider, the Moloch, is only going to take about 1.5 the cost of a regular avatar. So like it's not.
Oh man, that's.
Once you actually have these, like the build cost is not going to be all that much compared to just the demand. So NC.Super Capital Fleet most recently spotted at Mount, which is right on the border to Syndicate. The theory is that they're going to try to mess with Initiative because Initiative has been holding them off quite effectively. So, I need to tell the story, as Shinley points out, about the MRA name.
Yep, go ahead.
So, as part of just like the Imperium thing, like we're wandering around and getting a chance to meet the generation of Eurogoons that I haven't met yet. And we had a lot of people from the States. We actually just ended up with a ton of our guys coming in kind of at the last minute, and we ended up being the most numerous organization there. And one of our dudes, most of the time we call each other by our space names, not our slave names. And so I was like, oh, hey, like one of our friends we were rolling around with is Anti-Girl, or he was Anti-Girl. And he's like, I really wish I could change my name on the forums because it's one of the most embarrassing thing in the world to have somebody shout out in a room of mixed genders, hey, Anti-Girl. And especially with the whole men's rights advocate.
She's in the chat, I think, too.
It's not she, it's a he.
Oh.
So,
wow.
Yeah,
okay, sorry.
Anti-Girl is a dude, and he's a fairly well put together looking goddamn adult dude. Like, you wouldn't look at him and go like, wow, that's an internet spaceship nerd. So here's a grown-ass man who looks like a grown-ass man having to deal with his space buddies going like, hey, Anti-Girl, right? Surrounded by, a place where you've got like, actual tests. Not very many test people ever turn up to anything in person, but there are actual unironic men's rights advocates who are garbage people. And so we were drinking together, and he's like, yeah, I wish I could change my name. And then it turns out that on goonfleet.com it takes like 25 billion ISK because Kilgarth doesn't want to be annoyed to get a name change. And I'm like, we will dispense justice when I get back. We will make sure you will no longer be known as Anti-Girl.
It gets better.
It gets better.
He tried to change his Twitch name and he can't do it for 30 days. So he's stuck with the Twitch name.
He's stuck with it on Twitch. That's funny. So he's still anti-girl on Twitch, but yeah. So, but I was like, in the name of justice, we have to make sure that we dispense with the 25 billion-ist cost, because no grown-ass man should have to be mistaken for a men's rights advocate in my alliance. It's just not acceptable. So. So it's already.
I know how you get about those type of people too. It's hilarious whenever they start to do their thing in Elysium. And
we don't really have men's rights advocates in Goonswarm because I just shoot them. I mean, the last time we had one was James and Mrilkesh, and I'm like, "This is awesome. You're fucking dead. Get out of my alliance. You go join Test."
Commissars.
Right? Pretty much the moments. Yeah, it really is. And hey, we even actually have a freaking emote for that now, which is pretty cool.
Yep,
so,
we commissar everything. So one last thing about FanFest, and I'm sure you all were a wonderful part of this. It's a tradition at CCP. A lot of people, of course, watching it from the outside were going, "What the fuck, guys? What the fuck?" But if you've never been to FanFest, you don't know about this. The Capture the Flag event every year is a big deal. A lot of people tend to try and capture other people's flags, and I heard we captured the best of flags this year. What flag did we take? I like the image here.
Well, we didn't take anything. What happened was a CO2 flag fell into our hands. Actually, we didn't steal it or take it. What happened was apparently one of the CO2 flags fell down off the rafters or something, and a friend of a friend who actually had nothing to do with the Imperium had just found it and apparently wrapped it around, like just had it tied to their backpack, just like, oh hey, I found this flag, cool, whatever. Gives it to somebody else who's also not part of the Imperium when they find out, like, oh wow, you have a CO2 flag, and then they give it to us. So suddenly you end up with a whole bunch of Imperium folks with CO2's flag, and hilarity ensues. We made sure that we masking taped traitors on it and hung that from the rafters upside down, which made a whole bunch of test guys really, really angry. But, I ended up like talking to the judge and Glendale, I think was his name, a couple times throughout the things. Most of the people who were at CO2 who were there were actually there and joined CO2 because they've been bloating up after the treason. So we made sure to use masking tape, and we didn't actually deface the flag and gave it back to the guys once it was over. Glendale properly was like, we shook hands and he like flicked me off, and then we said all in good fun. It was probably
yeah, so I'm saying,
like,
from the outside,
it was mostly Thorn Syndicate guys, right? It wasn't like
Thorn Syndicate guys were always really cool. It was just funny watching Reddit and watching these nerds flip out saying, "Oh, Goons are just so bitter. That's why they stole it. They just defaced that man's property because they just don't like people in a video game." Why would you hang out with these people?
Nominate points out, like, they're the first to get mad on somebody else's behalf. I actually wandered around most of FanFest wearing a CO2 badge. I didn't fill out my badge, and one of the CO2 guys gave me challenge coins, and I ended up with a CO2 sticker. So I wandered around, and like, the funny thing about Test, and especially when they're clutching at their pearls and whining on Reddit, is usually these guys don't turn up to Vegas or to FanFest. There's usually only like 3 or 4 of them. I've never seen like a big crew of Test guys, and so they're sitting there out on the sidelines watching FanFest from afar, being butt blasted on CO2's behalf when the CO2 dudes are super fucking chill about it on the ground. And it wasn't really a big deal. It was just sort of like fun times. So it's kind of funny to see that, where these guys are like getting really, really horribly offended when they're too afraid and socially maladjusted to actually ever turn up to an in-person meeting.
I never understood some of this. Like, we brought this up recently. Of all the FanFest people, it's, I think, the only one for the CSM this year that we've never seen in person or never even seen a picture of would be Vince Draken. And so that's going to be very interesting.
The CSM announcement.
Yeah, the CSM got announced at FanFest, and we talked about that last week. But we were going through it today, and there really isn't anyone but Vince Draken that we don't know who he looks like. So we're going to get to see him for the first time live. And what kind of grown man he is, as you put it.
That is going to be curious all the way around. Just checking out things over here.
Okay, yeah, so we talked a lot about this, but we got to move on because we're leaving our international guest wondering if he's going to get to talk at all.
Well, let's get some shout-outs before we do that, because we need to...
Yeah. So we have Apple Pear.
We have a shitload of resubs. So Apple Pear for 6 months, John Hartley for 5 months, and Nominate Nom for 21. The Villix 1 month, Twitch Prime, Cotter Vest 4 months. Sally Salomon, of course, one of the FanFest crew, 5 months.
Sally always watches our show. He's cool.
Hell yes. And then What's wrong with the guy preferring to keep his life private again? I don't think anybody
There's
said that at
nothing
Hulu, but
wrong,
if you want to
but-
get horrifically offended on Vince's behalf,
It's
then
just-
make a Reddit thread about it.
It's just rare to see someone on the CSM that you don't know who he is, or like him
Most people
attending
who are
things, yeah.
autocrats have, I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Most people who are at the top level of Nullsec have met each other, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
real life
have-
sociable people, yeah.
Exactly. So it's just going to be interesting to see how that impacts his leadership of NC. If he takes it seriously, and we will see how this goes. When I look at you both now, it reminds me of Laurel and Hardy. That's actually pretty good. Maybe one of these days we should get dressed up as Laurel and Hardy and see if we could do a who's on first routine. I don't like that.
I think we might be able to. All right, so let's
All right,
click
let's
on the
bring
international
virtual on.
button.
Let's do the international segment.
Our graphics are the best. Alrighty.
Booyah. I really like that.
Hello.
Hello, hello. So today we have Bertrel from ODN, who is representing the French community here within the Imperium. Bertrel, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little about you and your corporation?
Well, I've been playing Eve for about 5 years now. I've been recently promoted to CEO. It's been less than a year still. And yeah, we're basically a noob-friendly corp. We're taking alpha players. We have a very laid back environment. And yeah, we're more PvP focused than some other corporations.
What has been the most interesting thing for you about shifting from being a director to being CEO? If you're recently becoming a CEO, what's that been like? What's the transition for you?
Oof. I don't know. I haven't been director before being the CEO. In fact, I was just an officer. I was making sure people were making their paps, and yeah, I was catapulted CEO.
You were Frogapult being the CEO.
That
I remember
reminds
back
me.
then, we used to the early days, of course, back in old school when TCF had some of the first Titans in the Red Storm Federation. The guys would basically refer to jump bridging off of a TCF Titan. TCF themselves referred to them as Frogapults, and I've always liked that.
Yes.
What can you tell us about ODN? Can you name your corporation, because people in chat I just say for you. So what is the name of your corporation, and how long have you guys been playing together as a crew?
Well, ODN is obviously stands for Les Chevaliers de l'Or. Nobody knows what the letters actually mean. The corp is so old that the secret was lost in time.
So the corp is that ancient that ODN ended up being a weird in-joke acronym, and now the directors have changed so much that nobody actually knows why it's ODN anymore?
Yeah, that's right.
One of my favorite ODN members was the guy that helped set up a bunch of stuff when we were in Paris that one time.
Was it ODN? Zadis is probably what you're
Zadis,
talking
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Was he ODN? Oh, but anyway, so
No,
sorry.
I don't think so.
Oh, maybe he was a different one. But anyway, so I heard that like a lot of the French corps. So one of the things that kind of interesting about French corps is they tend to move around a lot. From various friends of mine that I've had over the years with French corps, they tend to get bored and then they want to do a thing. Ever since TCF breakup, kind of like what happened with RA when RA broke up. They just kind of everyone went their own way. What's it been like with ODN since the TCF days? I mean, you guys have been goons a long time now. What's that been like?
I haven't known TCF. In fact, I joined Goons when, yes, we were already Goons when I joined ODN. So I didn't know TCF. I think we have one active guy currently that was from that age.
That era.
So yes, that era.
So, I mean, what can you tell us about? We asked this earlier from one of our other guests on a different international segment, but he was actually of Belgian extraction. You are French, but you live in Switzerland currently?
Yeah, that's right.
So, what can you tell us about your impression of the French speaking Eve community? What's the culture like of French Eve players in general, not just in the Imperium, but as a whole?
Toxic.
Toxic. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Tell me more.
We are a casual corporation, so there's not much drama inside ODN, but everything we see outside. You said that French corporations tend to move around a lot, and I think that's basically because of drama. They love drama, or maybe they don't, but they like to create drama. And yes, they try to settle somewhere, and then people disagree, and I don't know if it's the French way or there's something in the food.
Something in the food.
That's excellent. I mean, we haven't really seen too much drama from French corporations in Goonswarm, but then again, maybe that's just because
you shoot everyone that causes it.
Well, yes, but
I love how your eyes there. It's like no, of course not.
It's sort of fair and balanced, right? You try to, it's not just we don't shoot French drama, we just try to shoot all drama. But we've had a pretty stable group of, we've got a very large French community within the Imperium. What would you say it is? Like, is it usually people who are, is it the CEOs of the French corporations cause drama? Is it just like, on the outside, like, what have you seen? What's a good example in your view of toxic behavior from the French on the outside of the Imperium?
From the drama I've seen, the French seem very entitled to their opinion. They don't like the authority. They feel like they have to rebel. Maybe it's something about the French Revolution or something.
That's excellent.
And, they invent stories about conspiracy. The leadership wants to take their money or something.
Why? How long have you been? You weren't in the TCF days, but so when did you join Goonswarm? How many years ago?
5 years ago.
Okay, so in those 5 years, you've had an opportunity. Like, we haven't really had, at least as far as I'm aware, any drama in the French community within Goonswarm. Why do you think that is?
Maybe just because Goonswarm enjoys the most stable corporations, the French corporations, at least.
That's true. It seems to be that way. But that's good to hear. So one of the things our guys are always asking for here is on these international spotlights, everybody's very interested in hearing people speak in their native tongue. And of course, where in France were you born? Like, are you of Parisian extraction or somewhere else?
I was born in Paris.
Okay,
and
so
then I quickly moved to Switzerland, so I grew up in Switzerland, basically.
Gotcha. Well, let's hear it. Let's. Why don't you do a recruitment pitch, or just say whatever the hell you feel like in your native tongue, so we can all listen and remember how ugly English sounds by contrast to French.
Alright, cool. Alors, bonsoir les moches. Alors, si vous êtes français et que vous aimez le latex et le PVP, ODN peut s'occuper de vous. On est très 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 accueillant à ce niveau-là. On a le toucher très délicat. Rappelez-vous seulement que on n'intègre pas ODN, c'est ODN qui vous introduit. Et peut-être qu'un jour, comme moi, vous pourrez baiser la bague de l'Italie. I'm done.
Awesome.
I have no idea what you said, but that sounded really interesting. I've always wished that I could speak French. I periodically try to learn French, but my accent is absolutely atrocious, and I feel like I'm doing the language a disservice by mangling it with
I
my...
feel the same speaking English.
Okay, well, you guys, I've never heard somebody speaking English with a French accent and gone, man, they suck. It's more like, wow, I wish I could learn how to speak French. That's what that does for me anyway. But alrighty. Thank you so much for coming. And obviously you are welcome to stay on and comment as we move on to the Nullsec Power
Hour. Don't worry. It's going to get interesting. It's going to get spicy in a few moments as we go into the Nullsec Power Hour.
Spicy.
Yes, because things just happened. Oh, I played it twice. So, guys, This just happened seconds ago. PL Dreadbomb and Dell snags 2 oracles and 2 carriers because people don't bother to get help. And, of course, the PL Titan is still alive and bridging all of these fine battleships that PL own in Delve on top of our lovely oracles.
Let's see. It looks like we didn't even... Okay, we died. Well, these
Yeah,
things happen.
it's hilarious. I'm sorry. You should never die to these people. Come on now.
Well, it just depends on whether... Like, this is the thing that we were talking about on the criminal meeting earlier, is that people join Goons Forum and there's different expectations. We always need to find out whether people were on comms and coordinating in the appropriate way before we point fingers. But it's very different from like an FCON style alliance where we actively go try to defend people who are not on comms, who aren't paying attention to intel channels and things like that. The weak have to die in order to learn to become stronger or to be examples to everybody else of what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, so
that's essentially...
To quote the Jay Amaziness, can't save all the Dumbos. That's just the way he worded it. So, guy must not have been on comms because, you know, shit happens. And yes, of course, as we move to Nullsec Power Hour...
Zetas just subscribed. Whoop.
The first thing we're going to talk about, oh, thanks, Sadis, is a first in EVE history. Now, a lot of things happen on Tranquility all the time that are unique and interesting, but very rarely does EVE China pull out something insane, and not a lot of press came this way, but I like to say this is the first. So this is the first Keep Star kill on EVE China. There were close to 3,000 people in local. To give you an idea, on an average day on the Chinese server, even with all the bots and everything, it's 15,000. So I'd say 1/5 of the whole server was at this fight, which is pretty fucking amazing. But the really big deal here is the fact that they had an entire fleet, 255 people in Titans, one whole fleet. No frigates, no subcaps, no faxes, just Titans.
Speaking of, actually, this is a perfect time to bring this up. So that scan that we were posting around earlier about the NC.op with 170 Titans or whatever is actually half that. That was a double pasted scan, so it ended up being only about I'm seeing about 70 Titans thereabouts.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Which is a much more reasonable thing. If NC. Was rolling around with 170 Titans, I was like, whoa, that's completely outside of anything we expected. So that turns out to be interesting, but not nearly as what the fuck as we had thought. So,
oh, sorry. Yep, go ahead.
You go.
Oh, so someone says everyone gets a Titan in China. That's not the case. It might be the raw materials might be cheap, but the actual Titan itself can run up around 400 billion ISK for a Titan, which
if they mine it themselves, though. I mean, like we had.
I mean, I guess.
What was it? Aries Bar, our guest from a few weeks ago, who is from PLA, the People's Liberation Army in Goons Forum from mainland China. He was telling us how essentially on the Serenity server things are very weird because there's no regulations against botting. So essentially everybody is constantly massive robot armies are just mining everything under the sun, or ratting as well.
The issue is less about
weird shit.
The issue is less about getting the mineral stability. It's all the other stuff, the BPOs, the BPCs, like getting all of the things you need to fit it. It can be insane. Like a Plex is 20 billion. You know, we talked about that before. But it's just insane to see 255 Titans in one fleet, one group. So that was some interesting news. And speaking of Titan losses, we have 2 coming our way on today's Nullsec Power Hour. NC. loses a 200 billion as Titan. Had Draclera stuff. Ooh, bad fit too. I guess he got caught. Again, the whole low sec travel thing. Got caught. Got zapped. And then
this is that Leviathan we were talking about that happened.
Yep. And then Sebastian of CO2 fame has lost an avatar, bought a brand new avatar, and was transporting it down to Impus, and died with a minute to go on downtime. Either a minute or seconds, but it was, if you look at the kill mail, it's 11 o'clock, which is downtime. Apparently he misjudged his login log off timer and died. So I don't know if that's his 7th now, but yeah. And then as we talk about whelps, we keep rolling down the train. Test, save a super carrier, and then fleet warp it to a gate, which happened to be about the same time that we arrived. And they write it off, and the guy lost his super carrier. What makes this notable, and the reason we're talking about it, is that he owned it for 2 days. He was a
That
brand
happens.
new.
I mean,
yeah.
I can't throw too much shade about that because God knows.
Oh, no, it's
we
great.
Constantly are losing stuff ourselves all the time.
Well,
And yeah, Aquatus Protocol is pointing out that Sebastian St. Frescan is.
Oh
a
yeah,
good
he's
dude.
pretty cool.
And we actually, I mean, even though he is in CO2, we don't really blame Sebastian for the treason of CO2 because when GigX backstabbed the Imperium, Sebastian quit Eve. And I actually was not happy about that because, you know, it was good to see that Sebastian had character about that, but we didn't want him to actually quit playing the game over it. I mean, I wish that he'd find a home that wasn't full of traitors and dealing with a piece of shit like GigX, but we do like Sebastian. And he had nothing to do with the treason, and that's important for us. I mean, one of the things is the Imperium, most of us at the leadership and FC level dealt with Sebastian. He was like the face of CO2 for
I like
us.
Sebastian.
And so when we're talking about anything involving CO2, it's very important, I think, for us to distinguish Sebastian St. Frescan from GigX and Duenchi and the other backstabbing
I have him
pieces
on
of shit.
Skype. So he was a cool dude. We used to talk all the time. Then we move
Is
on.
this person upset about backstabbing? Look at this. Jip
Oh,
1973 is mad about this. I hope we haven't gotten to shoot anybody yet.
We can go
this
ahead.
show,
I did
so-
some last week.
No,
So.
I'm waiting to see if he's going to say anything else that's interesting. As we basically need to something death to all traitors.
That's okay,
Right.
because now we get to mock Imperium members, and this is what I've been waiting for all week. This is going to be a blast. So, yesterday, we went to the V-3 fight. And so I hear it's a good idea to rat when 1,000 goons are fighting in V-3. So at downtime, an initiative Nyx proceeds to die, followed by 5 oracles to the Dread Bomb. Apparently it's a good idea to keep Rorqual mining after a Nyx dies. Then, not even 6 hours later, another ratty Nyx, this time TNT, right in the middle of our strat up. He gets ganked, and 4 more Oracles follow after him.
This is going to keep happening.
It's so beautiful, though.
It's just one of those
great.
things where we have got to just have people die and die and die until they learn how to show some basic survival skills.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
you know, there's two attitudes to it. Like either you can let the weak perish, as an example, to you don't actually die in Eve. So if you get killed in Eve, you can then go, wow, maybe I shouldn't have been ratting in a Vendetta or a super carrier in the middle of a strata.
Yeah.
And this is just going to happen, right? Like this is the way things.
It's like that Ragnarok that died. You weren't here last week to talk about it, but we mocked the Ragnarok that died. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just stupid. I've had a Titan for a very long time.
Right?
I've
like
had
sometimes people will die, but they're in intel channels, and sometimes this is the joke is sometimes it's a legitimate gank, right? Like the person
There's
who got
nothing
killed
you can do to save
did
it.
everything correct, and they were just in siege, and that's just the way it is. As opposed to that, there's people when we find out that they're not on comms, they're not in the standing fleet, they're not networked with people, they're just watching Netflix or whatever and being dumb, then we point and laugh.
Yeah, and so that's what's happened to Delve. The point and laugh's been funny because I've been hanging out with the guys who do a lot of the saving, and everyone that's asked to be saved and was in the right place at the right time, we've saved. And I was like, I almost want to make a video on how to like get saved because again, these 2 oracles that died, they couldn't find the correct fleet to join to light their sinos to get saved, and they were dead before they got help in their 7 minutes of time. They were panicked, they were freaking out, they just couldn't get saved in time, and
Especially as a work,
stuff like that happens, Right? Yeah, you have dependent mods. So you have 7 minutes to get saved. It's not like it's a rush thing. You get dropped on, you throw your panic mod on, and that's the way it goes. And then we move on. The war in the north. I call this the war of shit flinging because, of course, Cap Marcher and Sword Dragon like to throw shit at each other. And there was a rather big fight recently. PL attended that fight instead of coming to V3 today. RESJ. What? Oh, wow. That'll be interesting. Apparently, it might have been 14 oracles, not just 2. But anyway, let's move on to Try. If you guys want to talk about this, if anyone wants to contribute...
They're not on Zeke yet, but if it's actually 14 roll calls, that is going to be
that
amazing.
Hilarious.
We're gonna try to get a ALOD for this if that's the case.
Yeah, that needs to be wrote up on because 14 I think is the most in one go I've seen ever.
That is
but
huge
fight happened. We had Renters and Branch versus Triumvirate PL. 180 billion lost total. This was a pretty big fight. Looks like tried to dread bomb or drop dreads on a carrier blob. They zapped a lot of carriers, got some dreads, but in the end lost all their dreads. 94 bill to 86 bill, pretty sizable fight. Of course, they both took to Reddit afterward to claim victory, but at the end of the day, who gives a fuck? They're shooting each other. It's fun to watch.
This is one of the things that we're seeing here. Is Port66 points out that he's been already jumped or dropped on 5 times, and if you do what you're supposed to do, you live with no problem because we have shitloads of dudes. So we're waiting for that to load so we can confirm things one way or the other. There is something else here, and I know that we're sort of going off. We're going to run over time. We're going to close it off in 3 minutes so Boat can do a show. But one of the things, we are making some changes at INN. Which I'm rather proud to announce. We now have Rivra, who is not actually in the Imperium on her main character, at least. I think she has an alt. But she is now the managing editor of Imperium News Network, which is something that I am very proud of. So we are having sort of an editorial change. She is now the boss when it comes to everything involving writing, and we are trying to do a better job. I wasn't very happy with our FanFest coverage. There's no reason for me to beat around the bush about that. I thought that we failed editorially in terms of covering FanFest, and I think that we haven't done a good enough job of reporting on things that are relevant to the Imperium, right? So I'm there at FanFest, and for the first 3 days, all we're talking about is GigX's 5 Titans eating shit, and we didn't even have a thing on INN written up, even a news hit, just saying, hey guys, this happened, ha ha ha. So I came back from FanFest, we made some changes, and what we're trying to do with the new editorial regime is focus on just getting things that are relevant to folks in the Imperium out there as rapidly as possible, as soon as possible. And if you're interested in joining us, I've dropped the recruiting link there. So Rivra is now in charge. I have every confidence in her because she was already an awesome editor in the first place. And we're just looking to make Imperium News more of a place to get news about what's happening in the Imperium.
Yep.
Wild and crazy concept. But,
so I do have a confirmation from Karma Fleet guys that can see corp losses, 14 in corp losses so far, plus 2 carriers.
God damn.
So that's
that's exactly what I was talking about there in chat. 14 Rorquals, god damn. That's,
looking like about
impressive.
80 billion if they all died with their stuff inside, and it looks like most did. So yeah. Woo!
Chad Wise the Brave says that he's been dropped on 3 times as well, and he's been saved every single time. So
you've ratted a super, I've ratted a super. Hell, I've gated around in a Delve and a Titan. You just have to be intelligent and use your brain, and dumb be dumb. I mean, that's the way it is. So
this is, it's a balance, right? Like, we have to I don't want to have a culture where if somebody loses something, we point fingers first. We should investigate and then point fingers, basically. But in general, most of the time, there have been situations where if people are dying en masse, it then turns out that they weren't in the standing fleets and that they weren't paying attention.
Right.
So, there you go.
So we have one more thing real quick before we call it a day here. So this is the number since December. 921 Rorquals have died that have been recorded since December. So that's 4.5 months. That is more than the last 2 years previous combined. So just to give you an idea of how many more Rorquals are being caught and killed. In 1 year's time, just a couple years ago, only 400 Rorquals had died, and we're only 4 months in and 920 plus. Just the month of April is already seen 161 die. It's just absolutely
and
insane.
that, ladies and gentlemen, is why you always leave a Mercoxic rock for last, such that you can hit your panic button as needed. A little bit of
I don't even want to comment on this guy, because here's the thing, right?
Well, we don't know. Like, we have to be. I was very, a while back we had a situation where a guy in Karma Fleet lost to Thanatos, and he lost it legitimately. And some of our directors were too quick off the mark with a ping, pointing fingers when essentially innocent guy who didn't screw anything up died. So it's
the
very
report.
important.
Well, I would investigate this one, but the reports from like 10 different people that have PM'd me now have all said he came into comms. He claimed he couldn't find the fleet that 210 other people had found. And everyone was pointing out very clearly, this is the fleet you joined, this is how you let your Cyto, and he was in his own fleet. So.
Poison Kevin is here, and he is doing his level best.
Hi. Poison Kevin's been pretty chill lately, but is he really going to go on
We've had Poison Kevin as a guest on the Meta Show before, so I'm not going to shoot him. Actually, people have been pretty well behaved in chat all around today.
Yeah, today's been a good day. We're out of time, though.
I haven't been controversial enough, I guess. But, yeah, so...
we didn't get to our CCP Police segment. This is going to be a good one. Next week. We will have to talk about this next week, because it's huge.
Absolutely.
Big deal.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming. And again, if you're interested in making Imperium News great again, with Reaver as the managing editor, we dropped the link in channel. You can find your way to do that. We're going to be trying to getting news hits out about all of these losses. There'll be awful losses of the day once we investigate this and get that up.
Yeah, thanks to all our guests. I'm going to play some Eve. Seriously, thanks to all the guests for coming. Sorry you guys didn't get to talk as much.
Well, they could have busted in and talked when they wanted.
I know, they kept typing into the chat. Like, instead of just saying, hi, I'm talking, they just typed. I don't know what that is. I don't know why.
We're British. We're polite.
That's true. That might be it. So, Port 66, Sally. I will, and Caleb. Actually, a huge crew of people from FanFest. We had a grand old time in Imperium Land, even if everybody else didn't. Our people had fun and made FanFest great again. So thank you guys so much. I hope you are recovering from your Icelandic death flu, and I will see you all with Boat next week.
Yep. See you guys.
Thank you. See you.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching the Meta Show. You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of